Hey, hi, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the I Love Me podcast, where we talk about self-love, positivity, and how to love yourself for all that you are. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest.
Hello, I'm Lestyn Lobo.
Hi, Lestyn, how are you?
I'm very good there. How are you?
I'm good. So, tell the listenership a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Lovely. So I am 19 years of age. I will be moving into my second year in aviation this September. Where am I from? That's a very complicated question. I would say I lived 18 years in the Middle East, precisely quite. I am from Portugal originally. Yeah, though I never really stayed there for more than 2 or 3 months. And I stayed in India for a couple of years, Dubai for a couple of years. So that's it. I'm a traveler, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Oh my God, Lestyn, I'm so happy to have you here. So let's just jump straight into it, right? So I know that when I first talked to you about this podcast, you were like, well, I don't think I have like many negative experiences I can talk about. And now when we first started, you told me that, oh, I wonder which one I should talk about. So let's just pose the question. Have you ever had any negative experiences within your life?
Actually, yeah, that is true. At first, I thought I did not have anything. And then when I dug deeper, and I feel like what really made me sad was when I came here for high school 3 years ago. I was really, really disappointed by the fact that the people would directly assume that, just because you're international, English is not your first language. And, that by looking at your skin tone, they would presume that you follow a certain religion and without even asking you, And sometimes I felt a bit inferior because I would feel like, get to know the person, because everything from the outside does not really speak the story that you're trying to tell. So I felt like, and then they put me into English as a second language course, despite telling them, it is my native language. But when I tell them I came from the Middle East, they would directly presume people over there don't speak English and and just Arabic, So
how did those moments make you feel?
Really down, actually. At first, I tried to block those feelings. I'm like, I don't need to get into that mess and, just keep myself positive. But 2 years passed and everyone, started to just presume, like, just because you're brown and because you are not from the English-speaking countries like UK, Australia, Canada, US, that you don't speak English. And I would be like, I would like just call my mom and talk to her and tell her, what is this? What is going on? Why are people just presuming stuff? And I just don't know how to react to this. Yeah.
Was this like your first experience with like the stereotypes that are like placed upon like people who look a certain way, or like people who are from a certain region of like the world? Was that like your first experience of like actual like stereotype?
No, actually, no. That would start from the Middle East, actually.
Ooh.
In the Middle East, if you're not a local, especially like I'm talking about just Kuwait, where I stayed for 17 years, if you're not a local, you're directly discriminated because of your skin tone. They would like, you have those booths in the center of the mall which offer free perfumes, samples. They would just turn your face away as soon as they would see a brown skinned person or a black skinned person. If you're not a white person, like a foreigner, or an Arab, like a Kuwaiti, they would not even offer you the trial. And if they would judge you based on your clothing,
Oh my God.
I had that feeling. Me and my parents had that feeling, like since we lived in the Middle East, and that's why we're trying to move out.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so hectic.
It is.
So like in these moments, I know you said like you felt down and like you reached out to your mom about it. Like, how did you cope with the feelings that you had? Like, what is one thing you did to like make yourself feel better in those situations?
One thing I did was to, try to avoid those people who did not welcome me and who would make me feel inferior and suppressed. Mm-hmm. So I would hang around with people and groups who welcomed me. Most of the time that would be my family, because we are all in this together. And other times it would be people who understand me, and groups who do not, marginalize based on, your speaking skills or how you dress and everything. So I would just try to find the right group and the right place where I truly fit in and not really let that get to me. But it became hard actually, considering that when I actually took drama in high school, and everything was going pretty well. And when I took it in the second semester with the same teacher, I was the only international kid there, and actually the only brown kid, for the matter. And I was, doing my lines, and she would just say out of nowhere, Lestyn, so you're not enunciating. I know you have a speech impediment, and that's a huge deal. So try to work on that, like, in front of everyone while I was on stage. And that crushed me. That was where I was truly broken. And that's when I started to be afraid. The fear started to just grow inside of me. That am I, is there something wrong with me? Because before that, I used to think, English is my first language. Everything's perfect,
Yeah.
And I came to Canada for a reason because everyone's treated equally. But then she said this and it made me think, and it brought all those feelings which I was trying to just suppress and hide over the years, from the experience in the Middle East and everything. And that, I was carrying it on actually till today, till this very moment. I was like, do I really have that? And I'm trying to, just block out that feeling, trying to say, it's not a big deal. But it's just, every time I step out of the door, and have to interact with someone, that her words just ring in my head, and that's awful.
Yeah. Like, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because I know what it's like to, like, only be, like, the only international student in a class, the only black person in a class, the only person of color in a class. And, like, I can say throughout my university here, I have not had a person of color teach me anything at this university. But the whole thing is, it's all about representation. And then when when people react to you having an accent, or like you coming from a certain part of the world, so they assume like, oh, you don't speak English, or your accent is too thick for English to actually be your first language. And it's like, why are you putting me into the stereotype of, this is who I am, this is what people say you are, so this is what I believe you are? And like, that's what I have the issue with. If you try to put me in a box, my box that I put myself in does not even exist, because I see my possibilities as limitless. And like, so let's dig a little bit deeper here. You said that when your teacher said this to you, your drama teacher, you went through various emotions. So describe the experience for us. Like, describe the emotions you went through, the emotional toll it had on you, and how do you find yourself when you go into that place, digging yourself back out of that hole and say, listen, whatever that teacher said, she's false. She's not speaking facts. She is absolutely wrong, and what she said is not right and not okay, and it does not apply to me. She might have been talking to someone else, but she wasn't talking to me.
That's some very strong things that you made me realize things that I did not even think about, really, and thank you for that. But immediately after she said that and months passed, I tried to just, block that out.
Yeah.
But then one day I just, just broke out and cried to my mom, and I'm like, is this really happening? Because I came here now to university and I found myself struggling to enunciate and struggling to interact with people, doubting myself, and that fear just started to build up and rise over and over again that, am I really flawed? Are people better than me? Do they not understand me?
Yeah.
Am I enunciating right? Because I'm like, oh, these are white people now and they speak better English than me. But then I just tried to, I actually forgot the fact that I've been speaking English since I was raised,
Yeah.
Since I actually started to speak. But then the fact that I'm walking around in a white society, Canada, right? And I was like, they have been speaking English. The world knows that English is their first language. Am I really like just a P? They're stuck here who everyone thinks that they can't hear because of the accent, as you said, right? They think that, oh, it's not our accent, they're not used to it, so they directly just think, oh, it's English, it's not your first language.
Or you have a speech impediment. Yeah.
They try to find flaws in you. And I feel like that fear started to build up. I started to cry. And I'm still trying to fight it, actually. But, I'm trying to fight that fear because the only way to overcome your fear is to face it. And all this while, I tried to put that teacher in my pit and try to look at her from above,
yeah,
saying that you crushed me, and now what's going to happen to me? I cannot climb out of that pit which you put me in. And then I realized that I'm the one who put myself in that pit in the first place. She said those words, as you said, but it could be to anyone. It doesn't have to be precisely to me. And so then I realized just lately, actually, when I had a conversation with my roommate. She said that you don't have to let that drive and determine who you are. You're not defined by those words.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. And then I realized that I'm the only one who can get myself out of that pit which I let myself in the first place.
Yeah.
So
definitely, like, I completely understand, because sometimes we give too much people too much power, the over control of our emotions, how we feel, and how we go about our daily lives. And like, I know for me, like, I always find myself, like, if someone says something to me that I find really, like, offensive, like, now I'm just like, hey, I confront it immediately, and I'm like, what you said was wrong. What you said affected me in this way. I don't need your apology. I don't need it. Would I like it? Yes, but I don't need it to move on with my life. I now know how you operate, and I now know how you move. So therefore, I will govern myself accordingly, and I will reciprocate the same energy. It's literally what it is.
yeah, it's all about the confrontation, and I should have done that what you just said you would do normally, but I think that confrontation vibe just did not come from me at that point. It was all fear and pain. I just let that determine who I am, and just ran away from it and kept running and running and running, and I felt like I was running towards it and not away from it.
Ooh.
And I should have confronted her at that moment and confronted the people who put me in this place, in that pit in the first place, rather than just holding on to that feeling. And then I realized actually that those people don't even know that they hurt you until you actually talk to them and tell them, you made me miserable. And then they can feel bad about themselves for putting you in that big tight spot in that box. But now they don't know. They're living their happy lives. And here I am, here you are. And we are offended by that. We are feeling miserable and traumatized.
Yeah. And it's not easy. It's hard.
Very.
It's so hard to confront someone and be like, this is what you did to me. Because sometimes you either have a fear of sharing your feelings, a fear of like, this is what the outcome is going to be, and I'm not ready for this. Like, I'm not ready for like what the outcome may be. But then I feel like sometimes we just overthink it in our heads, and like we have to crawl back up and climb up those stairs to get ourselves and be like confrontational. And so sometimes people don't understand or see how these things they say can affect you and your mental health, like your mental state, because that might not be the only situation you have going on. You could be having other struggles in your life. So how has this situation played a part in your mental health now, since it happened, and then now that you're in university?
Well, you see, when you talk about mental health, I did not know what that was, really.
Yeah.
The definition mental health, I never heard of it, because in the Middle East, there's no self-care, self-love. Everything is, you have to strive to be number one. In school too, we never had mental health lessons, or everything was just subject after subject after subject, exams, assignments, and you had to strive to be the topper, strive to earn that scholarship or that award. It was not until I actually came to Canada and people started to talk about, in high school about, self-care and self-love. And I'm like, why are you making that your priority? What do you mean self-care, self-love? There's no time in life for self-care and self-love, which is why I always, suppress those emotions which I had of being, rationalized in the Middle East, not being given the perfume samples, which I really did not want, but at least it would feel good to, be asked, do you want the perfume samples? Yeah, so I never really, took those emotions into effect and let it control my life until in Canada, where, and especially university right now, where they prioritize mental health so much, and I'm starting to learn so much about it. And at times, some part of me still goes back to me in the Middle East, where life is not about that. Life is all about being the best, striving hard, being number one, being awesome. Don't let those failures determine who you are. But then when I hear more, seminars on mental health and everything, on how self-care is so important, and you need to really take time for yourself, take a break at least one day in a week to see who you are. You need that relaxation, the moment of oneness and zen. Yes, I was like, maybe it's not too bad to, just go slowly and
Yep.
take the time for yourself.
Yep. Take a moment for yourself.
Exactly. So I don't know why I did not do that in the first place, because that was never brought to my attention. And now, as much as I'm here for like 3 to 4 years, and I want to go back home, I want to see how I will behave in that environment now, since I've been living in Canada for 4 consecutive years. And now that I learned so much, I've grown so much as an individual. Will I change when I go back home? I want to see how, what's the result of me changing here.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think you're gonna change once you go back home, because like once you like begin something and it becomes like a habit for you and a daily routine of like you loving yourself, becoming happy with who you are and not letting people affect you, once you go back into a situation that's like draining who you are and you have to put on this front, I feel as though you're not going to change yourself just to satisfy others. And then someone said on my podcast earlier, they were like, don't judge people for the path they're not ready to walk yet. When they said that, it was over. That was such a message. And I have to realize that, listen, you might not accept me for who I am. You might not accept me for me loving myself, accepting myself for me being whoever I choose to be. I don't judge you for that, because that's a path you're not mentally ready, or you are not ready to walk at, because you're so stuck in this mindset that you think you are right. And that's where we go wrong. And Lestyn, every time I see you, you're such a happy person. Like, I would never know, like, you went through all of these struggles and, like, the things you face, especially coming to Canada. So, like, I've always seen, like, the happy side of Lestyn. Like, it was always like, hi, Thor, like, giving me hugs, and we're vibing together, like, when we go out to, like, our friends' events and stuff like that. So, how do you remain such a happy person, I guess, is my question. How do you still end up on top and wake up every day and said, I am Lestyn. This is who I am. I am myself. How do you do that every day?
Thor, I'm glad you brought that up, actually, and that is one thing. Identity crisis is one thing I struggle with.
Yeah.
So that's why I went into acting in the first place, because you get to be someone you're not, get into someone else's shoe, right? And like every day I wake up, I know I have problems. Like I know not getting a job is one of the problems, and entire month of me I was struggling to that, and I just did not let that reflect who I was. I know I was going through some hard times, and there were like certain moments where I would just be very sad, but then I know the person who I can confide in, talk to. It's always my mom. And so once I like cry and whine to her, and she tries to like calm me down, when I walk out of my room and talk to the people, my roommates, talk to my classmates, the reason I don't like show my sad side is because I feel like they don't want to listen to it. They don't really care, and sometimes people can be a bit pretentious and show that they empathize with you while they really don't really care. So they just create like a false facade, and I let that drive me. I'm like, so people don't care. I'm in this in this world alone. My problems are my problems. As if I tell people my problem is just going to burden them and over their problems and their problems.
Yeah.
So might as well just keep it to yourself. Let you handle your own problems. Come up with a solution for yourself. And that's why, like in my drama class back in high school, everyone would say, Lestyn, you're so happy. And what you just said, you're always smiling, and you always brighten my day. And no one really knew like that thing what the teacher said affected me for those next 3 months. I never told anyone except my mom, And today I told you about it, and I'm sharing it with everyone who's listening. But normally I create this very light bringer kind of facade when I walk out of the doors, to show everyone that I am, happy, and nothing sad is going on in my life, which is sometimes really, wrong, because there is something sad going on in my life, but I'm trying to pretend that nothing happened.
Yeah.
So I'm creating that false identity, for taking on another character, which is truly not who I am. So I kind of act based on how people want me to act, which is very, very wrong, actually. So I feel like, I'm not going to be accepted if I start whining and show that I'm sad and disappointed with my life and everything. So that's why actually I kind of take acting into my real life, and I'm like, just pretend to be happy.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so that was a lot to unpack there. Yeah. So let's get this one by one. I know you mentioned like you feel as though that sometimes like when you're sad or when you're down that like your friends, you like sometimes you feel as though some people might be facetious or like just try to empathize with you in the situation but don't really care to like help you through it. And like what I can offer you is I completely understand, because that's exactly how I was when I was younger. And like I completely understand that. And I feel that if your friend actually cares, you will see it. You will see that your friend actually cares. Because for me, I like attention. So if I'm upset, like my friends say, like they'll have to like beg and pry, but like they really don't. I just don't want to tell them because I like attention and it makes me feel better. But if your friends are there with you whenever, like at the drop of a dime, like if you say I'm sad right now and they reply to you and they drop everything and say what's going on, talk to me, they're there for you. I promise you that. And I just want you to know, if you have anything, you can always reach out to me and I'll be there to listen and get down and jiggy with you so we can unpack yourself. And 2, at the ending there, you said that sometimes you pretend to be happy. I understand that. Like, I completely get it. I don't want to like invalidate your feelings of like how you feel, but sometimes you have to let people see your raw emotions, because when people see your raw emotions, it's like, damn, I didn't even know Lestyn had that side to him, or like I didn't even know that was possible. And it opens them up to see like another softer side of you and let them see you for all that you are, instead of like the bits and pieces that you want them to see. Because then if you look at it, your friends are missing out on the moments that you need them the most.
You actually right there, Thor. All this while I've been trying so hard to, just show people the one side of me, the strong, confident, charming Lestyn. And I never showed them the broken, defective, and flawed Lestyn. I'm trying to hide that from the world. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a overnight process. It's going to take steps. And like, it's not only a process that you have to work on, it's a process for your friends to work on as well. Like, now that they know this, I'm sure they're going to listen. Now that they know this, they're going to like try better to like be there for you, especially when you're sad, or like when they notice something is off that day. And like, if they notice you don't get them the smile that you normally give everyone when you walk through the door, they're going to be like, oh my God, what's wrong with Lestyn today? And then they're going to like try and break down the door, because it's a 50-50 friendship. Like, if you have a door, you're gonna have to cut the door in half. One half is for you and one half is for your friends. And so each of you are gonna have to break that door evenly so you two can create a magical bond. So yeah. So Lestyn, I know you say you pretend to be happy, which I don't like, because I want you to be happy, Lestyn. So I'm going to introduce you to a new segment on the podcast that is beginning with you. So not this part, but
sounds good. Okay.
There's 2 questions. There's 2 parts to this.
All right.
So we all know that in our worst moment, in our happy, so we, it happens. So we all know that we're not our happiest moments every day, 24/7, every day of the year. We're not our happiest. But we always have those moments where like we feel down, we feel sad. What do you do to get yourself out of those moments? And the new segment is, what are the 5 things that you do to make yourself feel better?
Actually, I can answer the second part of the question first.
Okay.
That's right at the top of my head. What I do to feel better, the 5 things. When something good happens, travel to celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're a traveler.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. I feel if something bad happens, I just learned I have to travel to forget that thing which happened.
Yeah.
To get your mind off things. And if nothing happens in the day, and you want something to happen, you want to feel productive, travel somewhere to feel productive and do something. Of course, my morning routine is getting up, looking at the mirror, and I've mentioned this to Thor actually several times, and just saying, Lestyn, you're awesome, You're
Yeah.
awesome. And I feel like everyone should follow that. Because then it just gives you some good vibes. So you know you're pretty cool and you don't need anyone's validation.
Ooh.
You're just very strong as an individual yourself. And my fifth and final advice, which I actually learned from my TV show, my favorite TV show of all time, Lucifer. I love that. He said that he does not act on how people want him to act. He does not care how people think, what people think of him, and how he be's he. And he's like, a meddler and likes to do shenanigans and everything. So I learned that from him. My favorite character of all time. So those are the 5 pieces of advice which I can present right now.
Oh my god, I love that. I'm like, I liked your last point. Like, you do not care what anybody says. Like, I come up to Lestyn and I'm like, Lestyn, these shoes do not match this outfit. And Lestyn was like, I don't care, I'm rocking my shoes. Are you upset that you don't have these shoes in your closet? Like, what's the point? Like, why aren't you minding your own business? And so, speaking about living who you are authentically and not caring what anybody has to say, what does self-love mean to you, Lestyn? I know that you're in a growing process of finding your happiness and getting to that point where you can be happy with who you are. But what does self-love mean to you?
I would say there are always hurdles in life that you can't escape and potholes that you can't try to avoid despite the fact that you're trying to.
Yeah.
And right at the top of my head, as I mentioned earlier, self-love is not one of my fortes. But if I had to go on that path of self-actualization and try to acquire self-care and self-love, I would say it's taking time for yourself, really digging deep into those emotions. Above all, trying to understand that the world out there is not there to get you. People have their own problems and their own life to work on, to fix, and you're not on the pedestal for them. You put them on the pedestal. As you said earlier, you give them control of your lives. So I think if self-love for me would be taking back that control and that power which you give people and give it to yourself so you can raise higher than anyone else. That right now at the top of my head is something that I would use for myself in my life and for anyone else listening.
Definitely, I completely understand. Especially when you said you looked in the mirror and tell yourself oh yes, I'm awesome, I'm beautiful. And sometimes I just hop up the shower and be like, damn, I look good. I look good.
Absolutely.
I look in the mirror and be like, oh, I look good. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But do you have rules for your self-love? Are you I'm not gonna let anybody affect me? But do you have any rules for your self-love? Do you have any rules that are I'm not gonna let anybody affect me for who I am? What are your rules for your self-love?
Well, since I just had that revelation, the big get out of the box kind of moment recently, I feel like live in the moment, do not try to plan ahead. I hate the word plan because every time I plan and strategize, it never goes according to that plan. So I'm just hop, skip, and jump. Try to just plan because you never know what I might walk out of this door and you never know what might happen.
Yeah,
a pot of gold might be right at my doorstep.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly. So just live in the moment. And secondly, the fear. I would say the element fear. Just don't let that get to you. I mean, there are a lot of things to be afraid of outside, but don't let that fear eat you alive. I feel like I let that happen. My fetishization of pain and fear and suffering. I let that attack me and hinder me from trying so many things. There are activities going on in the pond. And I want to go out of my room and get out and go on campus and, not knowing anybody, but still, be a part of that activity. But it's a fear.
Yeah.
It's really oh, people are going to judge me. I don't have anybody to talk to. And while people are having, their conversations, I'm just going to stand there and look at people's faces. It's gonna be awkward, I don't know. And that's why when, my roommates hold parties and everything, I do not sometimes mingle around because I'm afraid. And I don't know why I let that happen. And I think my advice, which I just recently learned to the listeners, would be don't let fear get to you. That's the problem, which we all let that fear and fright get to you. That's
Yeah, I definitely understand. Now, with your first point, like, just go with the flow, like, Wu Wei. No. Like, me, I'm a Virgo, and, like, I have to plan, like, everything, every detail, every minuscule second that I want to do.
And you always go according to plan. Does it always work?
When I go according to the plan, it's a good day. When I don't...
You're tormented.
Yeah.
You're like, ugh, okay.
I'm like, I should have done this differently, I should have done this, and this. But, like, now I'm realizing, like, I can't, like, plan everything. Like, everything is not meant to be planned. Some moments you just have to go on the fly on and just, like, go with the flow. That's why I created this podcast, honestly. Like, I didn't give anybody any questions beforehand, or, like, I didn't, like, give you time to, like, think of...
Well, not really. Like, you just said, hey, Lestyn, come on the show, and I told you right away, like, I don't have anything bad happening in my life. And right now I'm sitting behind this mic and you're talking to me and I'm like, you know what? I never had these moments and somebody to talk to about this. And now everything is just coming out one after the other like a pattern. And I'm like, my life really does suck.
But don't worry, the sucky things make us stronger. And, like, even when we go through our adversities, even when we go through trials and tribulations, the things that we go through help us grow and help us mature so that we know that what I went through made me stronger. What I went through made me a bigger person. Like, I don't care. Like, at this point, I've been through so much stuff in my life. Like, I'm just literally here, like, I'm just chilling. Like, Like, at this point, nothing can affect me to the point where I'm, like, reverting back to my old ways, like going back to do things that I used to do. So, like, yeah, that's just the vibe. Like, and then, yeah, so I just have to, like, plan most things.
Whatever works for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever works for you. It's all about life and balance and, like, individual differences that we have. So, as we close out this podcast, and you've offered your advice, tips, and everything that you've done to, like, make yourself feel better, get to grow with your happiness, with your self-love, and to be the person that you are today. What is one piece of advice you would give to that little boy or girl that was in your situation in that drama class where that teacher was singling them out, ridiculing them because of the way they spoke, or just because, like, they're not used to people from other countries or have the stereotype of what you're supposed to be? What is one piece of advice you would give?
I would say, well, that was definitely a failure and a mistake, and that can be converted to success. So if I had to shorten it, I would say success is failure. And that is something which I got from my brother, actually, who told me that from his own life experiences. And now if I had applied that success is failure to that situation, you know, because that was a failing point in my life because I felt broken. And yeah, it was quite sad. And then I should have just realized that, you know, view success incrementally and try to use it as a stepping guide, because, you know, try to reflect on that moment and just let one day go by where you're reflecting. Don't let that reflection go on and prolong for years and years and years, because now it's been 2 years and I'm still dreading on that situation. And I'm like, what is wrong with that old Lestyn? Well, I was such a fool, you know, to not learn from that mistake. I'm just dragging on it, and created a whole path of torment. So I would say another advice, and this is my advice actually, new is always better. And that's what I got actually from a show which I was watching. Try new things, you know. Don't let the old things determine who you are. Don't go back to the old stuff which you already did. Meet new people, you know, because you can get some new ideas from them. So new is always better.
I always say that, and I always say I never do remixes. If me and you turn out to not be friends anymore, if me and you end up, like, if you cut me off and you try to come back in my life, I don't do remixes, thank you. Because there was clearly a reason why you were out of my life. And personally, I let some friends go. Now I'm better. But Lestyn, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Like, this has been such an insightful episode. Like, I am learning more about you as we converse throughout this whole thing.
That is so true. I am so glad, Tar, you invited me on the show, because I feel like we have a deeper connection now.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that Tar and me, we're never going to lose our friendship. It's going to be strong for life.
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely, Lestyn. I want to thank you so much again for coming on the show, giving our listeners some insightful tips and some wisdom of what they can do when they even encounter these situations, or just letting them learn about you, the experiences you face, and how you've overcome them. How you are growing in happiness and self-love, and how you are living holistically and authentically in all that you are, and how you don't care about the fact that your shoes do not match your outfit today.
On that note, I feel like I am very, very fashionable. And I always tell Tara that I feel like I am the most well-dressed person here in Sacramento. That's the attitude you're supposed to have, guys.
Yes, very much so. Like, every time I see Lestyn is always like, I'm the hottest person in the world. I'm the hottest person in Sackville. I am the most fashionable person in Sackville in the world. Like, I am the baddest on these streets. You should be lucky that you met me, because I am the baddest person there is. So, yeah.
I just love Tar. Tar.
Yes, this has been such a great time. Thank you for sticking around with me for this entire episode. I want to thank you again so much for coming. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the I Love Me podcast. And I hope you learned something today about these experiences and giving you some tips on how to grow in self-love and happiness. My name is Thor.
And my name is Lestyn.
And we are out. Thank you guys so much for listening.